Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Let Them Eat Cake. This episode we will discuss the Pakistani tribal zones and Waziristan, the areas that border Pakistan and Afghanistan. The tribal zones and Waziristan were home to America's drone war, disrupting life in the area for roughly 20 years. This is the area which the Taliban fled to during America's occupation of Afghanistan and where the Pakistani Taliban or TTP reside, specifically in North Waziristan. We cover all of this and more during this discussion with our guest who has strong ties to the northern areas of Pakistan and has extensive knowledge of the area and the conflicts that have occurred there. As always, we are 5th Gen, an information warfare cooperative that aims to shed light on things those in power want to be kept in the dark. We want to give a voice to the voiceless and give people the information they need to thrive in a world that tries so hard to starve you of it. I'm Jack and my co-host is John, and we hope you enjoy the show.
We have a weapon more powerful than the British Empire, and that weapon is our refusal to bow to any order but our own, any institution but our own.
What's up, guys? Name's Ghazi Khan. Currently right now in Houston, Texas. Originally, my family's from Pakistan, from the northern area, KPK, which is the Pashto area.
And what is KPK and what is a Pashto?
Okay. So the northern, northwestern areas of Pakistan are populated by Pashto-speaking people. So Pashto is a language, and the people that speak it are called Pashtun or Pakhtun, depending on your dialect. The region is named after those people, and their language is Pashto, and they're called Pashtun.
So I just was reading that there's a whole faction of people who think that they're a lost tribe of Israel.
Yeah, dude, that's like an actual thing.
Yeah?
There's people take that stuff seriously. Like, don't tell them they're not, but yeah, that's the thing. It's a very, let's be polite, it's a very primitive area. There's not much, in the way of academic and historical recordings and stuff from like the native people. So a lot of it is like, folklore and, legends and stuff. And some of it is like what Indians and Persians said about the people there. So there's not much factual information. So our area, if you're not Pashtun, he's Gujar or Hinko or like one of them other like Chitrali or something. It's very, it's a big deal. And there's a lot of like racism and like tribalism and stuff that comes along with that. So
That's
it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's tribalism, I think, is the best way to describe it.
But
because the Afghan Taliban and the Pakistani Taliban, people think, just like when you hear that, you think that they're just two branches of the same tree.
I think they have separate goals and ambitions that they don't really, they're not working towards the same thing, so they don't necessarily.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest factor is the state of Pakistan and how they view the state of Pakistan.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. And how they identify themselves in relation to Pakistan and Afghanistan, it's different. Pakistan has been very effective in enforcing the idea of the Pakistani state as the most important identity. So even if you go into tribal areas, and even amongst like TTP guys that fought against Pakistan, it's still that the identity of being Pakistani supersedes all the other identities. So
I've seen a lot of stuff where they'll clear a TTP area and then all they do is put Pakistan flags everywhere. They like go overboard and like plaster like
Pakistani and they do stuff. They make like people kiss the flags and stuff.
Yeah,
it's pantomime. And
when the United States comes in, this is the story that I always hear. So if I'm going to watch a documentary on this about the Taliban and Al-qeada and all that stuff, they'll literally say that the United States came in and these fighters went into Pakistan. And then it just kind of falls off from there. So it seems like there's this mystery period where nobody knew what was going on. The United States or the Pakistanis, nobody was really reporting on it.
The U.S. had a really hard time controlling and taking over and rooting out the actual fighters from, the eastern mountainous regions of Afghanistan that border Pakistan, the mountain range that the Durand line follows, right? That entire region on both sides was where a lot of these fighters held out. A lot of them crossed over, but it wasn't necessarily that they fled into Pakistan. Instead, they fled into these mountain regions. And from there, once they crossed over to the other side, they did enter into the, deeper into Pakistan, but still they're centered around these mountain regions.
So the regions that are the mountainous regions, is it the Fata and the
Yeah,
northern regions, is
hmm
that so? It's technically Pakistan, right? But in the
it's all
actual
Pakistan.
area, is it? Are the people there? Do they consider themselves Pakistani, or is
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
You're not
so
gonna find anyone that doesn't
it's
say
not
that.
like an autonomous sort of well,
No,
it's like
so
not like an autonomous culture where they're like the Kurds where they don't want to be a part of these other
no, it's not
countries.
like that. I mean, like for some reason, in the past like 2-3 years, you have had like actual separatists that say we want to break away, especially in like Waziristan. I don't know what, like this is a very new phenomena, but they have always identified themselves as Pakistani. Like if you'll be hard pressed to find anyone, even people that are against the Pakistani state will not identify as, oh, I'm part of Afghanistan instead of Pakistan. That is not something you're gonna find. What you have to understand is that when the Duran line was drawn, right, the Afghan kings, King Abdurrahman, he actually wanted to separate the people on the other side, those tribes, because they were supporting and creating a lot of issues and a lot of rebellion. So he was actually quite insistent on making the line over there on the northern side. Towards the south, with regards to Quetta and the southern Pashtuns, especially in the Waziri area, that's a different matter. But in the north, they definitely wanted to separate them and keep those Pashtuns on the British side. Pakistan simply inherited the tribal areas from the British. That's the easiest way to look at it.
Yeah,
So what
basically.
the arrangement the British people had, the Pakistanis simply carried that over. Pakistan and India was all one country, right? And the tribal areas were tribal areas beyond India, right? So the British considered it to be part of the British Raj, but these were like autonomous tribes people where it just wasn't worth actually, with the amount of fighting and what you get in return, it just wasn't worth it for the British to permanently occupy the area and completely anglicize it. So they sort of just left them, and through negotiations and whatever bribery payments and occasional fighting, they sort of had an agreement. But what the Duran line represented was the limit to which the British could engage with tribes, essentially, right? So on the other side of the Duran line, the British were not supposed to have this agreement. Those people were the subjects of the Afghan king, who in reality was a British puppet as well, because he was actually installed by the British following the Second Anglo-Afghan War. So you have a dynamic here where, in actuality, the British do have influence over both sides of the border, but in terms of the literal letter of the law and the sphere under which the British had actual long-term interactions, it would be on the then Indian side of the Durand Line, which is the modern-day Pakistani side.
Yeah, Indian subcontinent.
Yeah, Indian subcontinent.
It's interesting because Pakistan is such a young country, but it has such an old history.
It's really more of a artificial identity created for the people that live there. I mean, as a nation, it's not an actual. There's no ethnicity that it represents. There's no culture that it represents. It's a mix of all the people that lived in that area that sort of were given this identity. That's practically what it is.
When we're talking about the U.S. invasion, the fighters get pushed into Pakistan, right? So this is how I've heard it reported over the years. The fighters came in, and then the United States was like, hey, Pakistan, you need to deal with this. And then the Pakistani came in, and apparently the people of Waziristan saw Pakistan coming in as like an overstep to like kind of conquer them.
Yeah, kind of. It wasn't that simple, because before 2007 operations and the Operation Mizan and all that, you had the U.S. bombing. The first drone strike was 2004, and that's what radicalized a lot of the local people as well.
Yeah,
So
2004. I don't have what group it was on though.
no, they hit like a mosque or something. Let me see.
It was a mosque. I looked this up. It was a mosque.
Yeah. Oh, they killed. Oh, they killed Nek Muhammad Wazir. He was like the first.
Oh, so like an actual, he's got Wazir in the name.
Yeah, but he had fought in Afghanistan against some commander. Let me see who he fought against. Saifur Rahman Mansour. So he fought with in Afghanistan against the Northern Alliance. So that was the first guy the U.S. killed. That was in 2004. This idea that there was a immediate response and all that, it's not that simple, but you could say that.
How did the relations between the tribal politics of the tribal areas and the radical Islam of Al-Qaeda come together?
It's not necessarily just Al-Qaeda. In one way, for a lot of people, Mullah Omar was a legitimate leader, and the U.S. invading Afghanistan and fighting Mullah Omar was something that all the people had to stand up against. You had to go help Mullah Omar. He was a legitimate Islamic leader. So what really split and what really caused issues with that was the Pakistan's response, because when Musharraf came in, he began reversing the prior policies Pakistan had, which was really pro-Islamist and pro-militant. And once he began doing these operations and firing ministers and firing generals and clearing out the army and bringing in pro-US officials and starting to do these operations, that's what caused a lot of these tensions. Because in this early period, I think a lot of people are sort of looking like, what's going on? What is Pakistan going to do? Because for them, in their areas, they're Pakistani, which means for them, they're part of an Islamic country. And like to them, in their mind, obviously we're going to, be with the other Muslim country that's being invaded, regardless of, ethnic lines or whatever. So that sentiment existed amongst a large number of people. Once the U.S. invasion began to take swing and Musharraf sort of was not doing the response people expected or were hoping for, I think that's when a lot of the violence and the fighting started.
Just doing a little bit of reading. Apparently, Pakistan claimed that drone strike, which may be why it's a bit hazy on whether that was the first one or not. It was definitely CIA, but Pakistan actually claimed it.
Yeah, it could be because
ISI would have been working unilaterally with the CIA.
Okay, I like to make one thing like a bit more obvious for people, that when they sort of view like Pakistan, they view it as like a unified, coherent state. Within the army, you have each general's doing his own thing. Within the ISI, it's the same thing. Intelligence, special force. It's really third world. So the U.S. has their interest in it.
They'll say that who runs Pakistan really?
It's whoever's people run certain parts of the government, and the U.S. works with those people. Chinese work with other people. I'm sure Russia. Everyone's got their hand in the pot, right? So that's what it's like.
And at the end of the day, as a politician, you're trying to advance your own position.
It's not even that, dude. You want money and nice house, and it's really
that's advancing your own position. That's your position in life too.
I thought you meant like your political career.
No. Personal gain. Political career is also personal gain, though.
I mean, there's people like in Pakistan right now with like cars that cost the equivalent of like $50-60 million in the US because of the import tax and stuff. They have swimming pools and like all that stuff in a country where however majority of the people live under the poverty line. So
and I think it's 60% were in FATA was under poverty.
Probably more, dude. There's no industry, no agriculture, absolutely nothing there. So just clarify. So FATA is federally administered tribal area. So it means that it's part of Pakistan, it's part of the Pakistani nation, but the Pakistan's laws do not apply there. So the local tribal people, they have their own laws and their own courts and everything. And the way you communicate with those people is through a federal agent. That's how it used to be. So there would be a federal agent assigned to a certain region. So like, each area, each agency would have a federal agent assigned by Pakistan to that. That's how they would negotiate. So
and they would literally call them agencies as well.
Yeah, or so
Little
like
instead of like
it was
provinces.
literally so Pakistan would give the agent this amount of money, this amount of things, send them into the agency to meet these tribes and be like, listen, do this, 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 and we'll give you this, this, this. That's how it worked. And for a lot of people, that's how a lot of people made money. That's how a lot of people were suppressed. People stayed poor. That's how power structures were maintained, and how a lot of the insurgency was, you know, suppressed. But at the same time, it's also how a lot of it was aggravated. So, like for example, you'd have tribes that were literally like, listen, if you don't pay us enough, we're gonna start allying with them to fight you. You had like even Hakimullah Mahsud, right? When he got taken out, he had was it $160,000 in gold at his fort. He had a swimming pool. He had a Jeep Wrangler. He had all this stuff, and this is like the notorious tribal guy that the whole world was against. The U.S., Pakistan, the Afghan Taliban weren't helping him. This was like a remote, caveman guy, and he had all this wealth and money. So the behind the scenes or the open negotiations and stuff is definitely the mechanism through which Pakistan served or pushed its interest in Fatah. But that does not mean that Pakistan had, state control over the local people. So you didn't have nowadays you do, but you didn't used to have Pakistani police, Pakistani courts, Pakistani judges. None of that existed there. Each tribe ran their area, and if there was an issue, you would talk to the federal agent, and that's how it was. It's not that they were radicalized. The people over there are all Muslim, right? You have even like the secular movements, even like the ANP and the PTM and the more like Marxist aligned, workers and student groups and stuff. Even they do not go against the backdrop of the Islamic ideas. Like no one is gonna go against God or what the Quran says or anything like that openly. That never happens. So it's not that the area was like a more cultural area, and then when the fighters came over it became radicalized. That wasn't what it was. It's the fact that the Islamic sentiment that already existed became it got flared up, so it got aggravated in a way. So it was always there, just they didn't become radical because the radical fighters came over. They became radical just as a consequence of how dare America invade this great Muslim country that stuck a middle finger to America just a few years ago. That's what it is. And more importantly, for a lot of people, and a lot of experts and stuff are going to disagree with me, but Mullah Omar was one of the few people that actually was able to get tribal people on the Pakistani side to go, wait, no, that's our leader. Like whoever's in Islamabad, that's nice, but this is our actual leader. He dresses like us. He speaks Pashto. He's really, he's a good fighter. He beat the Russians. He's going to beat the Americans. That was a sentiment that existed. The loyalty to Mullah Omar for a lot of people was superior to loyalty to the Pakistani state. At this time, you had people in the Pakistan army. You had generals, officers that were literally going, we're with Mullah Omar here. I'm there. You can find the article online. Just type in Musharraf dismisses Pakistani generals. He had two generals that went to Mullah Omar and told him, our army and our nation is with you. Just give us the order. That was the situation Pakistan was in. It's a really fractured state where on one hand you have Musharraf trying to, hold the nation together and sort of, keep in line with America. And you have this Islamist element that's there saying, no, we're going to be with Afghanistan and Mullah Omar, and we're going to propagate this more Islamist viewpoint. So this divide exists.
It sounds more like of a divide on foreign policy, though.
But the foreign policy is guided by the domestic and the local viewpoints. So you can't have this radical foreign policy if the people aren't up for it. And that's another thing that divided Pakistani society, which is in the Pashto areas, right, it's a lot more Islamic, it's a lot more religious. That sentiment was a lot stronger over there compared to like the more the more populous, more educated areas. So like, big cities like Lahore, Islamabad, Karachi, where you have like, you have poverty and, a lot of homeless and, crime and whatever. But you have a lot of academics, you have a lot of secular people, and they're not going to be on board with this. So this split, which is largely on ethnic lines, but it's not completely, existed. And then once Afghanistan gets invaded, it all of a sudden flares up. So the Pashto areas are a lot more Islamic. They have a lot more of the violence and the fighting. You did have at one point Taliban Punjab. You had Islamic militant groups in Punjab, Sindh, of course Kashmir is a whole different thing. You had these, non-Pashtun militant groups, but they're not fighting for Mullah Omar. They're fighting to establish Sharia and wipe out Shias and Qadianis and these other minority groups. They're trying to change the make Pakistan an Islamic nation.
Yeah, they
Like,
want a new constitution.
they want that,
basically,
and
but they don't want to. They still want to keep the Pakistan state. They just want
exactly. They just want to replace it. Whereas in the north, you had people that are removed from all of that. They're simply fighting against the, in their eyes, unjust occupation of a Muslim country right across the border. And in their eyes, these people, they speak our language. There are a lot of them were the same. Were intermarried, especially in like the southern areas. The link between Waziristan and Paktia is a lot stronger than in the north. The like Momand, Bajawar isn't necessarily as connected to Kunar and Nangarhar. So the cross-border relationships had a greater determination in the south and in the north. But regardless of that, the religiosity and cultural values in the northern Pashtun areas meant that those people saw themselves as being obligated to fight against the occupation. And in the rest of Pakistan, that sentiment didn't exist.
Why do you think that divide occurs? Realistically, like why do you think that Pakistanis don't necessarily have that fight, that drive that the people in this area do?
They do, but they have a completely different culture, completely different history, completely different language. They're a different nation
Yeah, that's why I said I simplify it to 4 nations.
Even you can go beyond simple 4 nations. You have even in KPK, you have different ethnic groups. You have Hinkawal, you have Pashtuns, you have Pakhtuns, which are the northern Pashtuns. You have southern Pashtuns. A lot of them have rivalries and stuff. Everyone calls themselves Pakistani. Everyone says, yes, this is my country, but what that country means for them is completely different. I think it's quite interesting. The post-British Pashtun identity became a lot more consolidated than it was before the British. The British, I think, were very effective in sort of streamlining this identity that people have and being, okay, look, this is what you are, and giving that. And people think, oh, that's really, okay, yeah, let's be that. The British were really effective in that.
Well, we want to get into the actual formation of the TTP. When this dude, the second dude,
Baytullah?
it's the guy who doesn't have the fantastic beard, the guy who came after him.
Everyone has very many beards.
No, he has more of a Johnny Depp thing going on.
Oh, Hakimullah, the Chinese-looking guy? Hakimullah had an evolution over his career, right? So in the beginning, even amongst like Pakistanis, like anti-militant people, he did have a certain how would you say it? Like he did have a certain like aura or like persona around him because
well, that's what he seems when I read about him. He seems very like a Robin Hood-esque legend.
Not just that. It's not just that.
He's like folklore surrounding him.
Yeah, I think it was more that when he first started out, all of his attacks were against U.S. Like he's famous for shutting down the NATO trucks
Because we
going
need to
into
feed our
Afghanistan.
soldiers and shit.
Yeah, so
even
he
stop our
literally
soldiers
shut
from getting
down
fed.
between 2007 and 2008. He shut down NATO supplies going from Karachi, which is the port in Pakistan, being driven up into Afghanistan. He cut that supply route off. So he had a lot of like support because of that. And then once he became
Didn't they take a bunch of NATO supplies and stuff?
yeah, so like yeah, they would like blow up convoys, and a lot of the times like letters and dear dad, I miss you. But they had a lot of times they had weapons, they had ammo, they had a lot of equipment, gear, and stuff like that. But I think that wasn't the purpose. The purpose was literally to cut off that supply line that the U.S. had from Karachi. They between 2007 2008 they effectively shut it down. He had
And that's when the surge comes too.
and
Which will
not
have
not
an
only
effect.
that, but he's a waziri, right? Sorry, he's a mahsud, but he was able to get support in Quram agency, Orakzai agency, Khyber agency, amongst all these non-wazir tribes. So he had support amongst these Orakzais, these Afridis and other tribals. He was able to raise fighters from these tribes to attack the convoys going through these agencies. So he had this
He had a lot of pull.
widespread
He had a
appeal,
lot of
yeah,
face,
which
and
is
he had a lot
very
of pull.
unusual. Which is very unusual for someone that rose up from a Mahsudi militant, tribal militia.
But before we keep digging into him, just very quickly, like summarize the guy who came before him and then the group that came before him, how they transitioned into TTP. Because
Okay,
I see
so-
TTP really as the Hakimullah. Like I see it really starting with him, even though it started with the guy before him. You know what I mean?
If you want to look at it one way, TTP is an umbrella term, right? That Pakistan uses to describe all these militants.
It literally means Taliban movement.
Yeah, it's Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. So the movement of the Taliban in Pakistan. Let's translate it as that. So there are literally people who have adopted the image and the whatever Taliban represents, they've adopted that and they're trying to implement that.
There's just these slight differences where I'm like, you could see it. It's like the hat. The hat won't be the same.
Oh, but that's
It'll be a
local.
little
That's local.
different,
So Waziris have a special. It looks like a flower almost. It's
okay, because I
wavy,
said
yes.
this to you before that I said their hat game is way more whack than the actual Taliban.
Yeah, I don't know. They're famous for their really elaborate, over the top designs.
Yeah,
And
Princess Toadstool.
Well, Taliban has a meaning as well, does it not? Like
yeah,
the word
Taliban.
itself?
This is really funny. So, Arabic, right? A talib is a student in Arabic, right?
Mm.
So in Pashto, that's a loan word. So Pashtuns in the Pashto language, you adopt talib, right? So the original word in Arabic is talib. In Pashto, you say talib, right? Taliban is the plural form for that, right? So you have a word for one, you have a word for two, and you have a word for many, right? In Pashto, you don't have that. So Taliban in Pashto means like the many students, right? The students plural. In Arabic, Taliban means two students. So it's Talib is like a religious student. Taliban, the religious students.
Madrasas. We've talked about madrasas on the show before, and
that's
how they were used to
that's all it
radicalize
is.
all over. So
That's all it is. Yeah.
mhm.
Okay.
I think this is a point where we have to start making some distinction and bring in some terms, right, to clarify everything. So in Waziristan, right, you have the Waziri main group, right? That's like the overarching tribe. Within Waziris, you have Uthmanzais, Waziri, and Mahsuds. These are like the three
Lineages
that all descend from the Waziri. So, or in a way, Mahsuds are like an offshoot. They have a different lineage that they're a branch, but they go back to the same lineage, but they're a different branch. So you have Uthmanzais, Waziris, and Mahsuds. They're all Waziris though. The Mahsuds and the Waziris, they have a very long-standing, well-established rivalry. They don't like each other. They have blood feuds going back decades, 100 years, whatever.
do
These
more
groups are called Lashkar-e Tehreek-e Jaish. So these words mean militia, group, party. That Hizb. So these are all like the prefixes, right?
Mhm.
So the party of, the group of, the militia of. So that's all that is. That's why a lot of them sound similar. You have Jaish-e-Muhammad, Jaish-e-Iman, Jaish-e-Islam, Tawheed. You have like all these groups. They all believe in the same crap, but this guy's like, no. In my area, I'm gonna represent this. That's all that is. But yeah, Waziris and Mahsuds, they have this long-standing rivalry with each other, and this is why I want to bring up the Nek Muhammad Wazir. He was like the first organized militancy that was attacking U.S. and Pakistani troops. This was like in 2003, 2004. So when he got taken out, so he belongs to the Wazir tribe, right? When he got taken out, that's when a lot of like you had this intertribal fight for dominance.
Leadership crisis.
Not even leadership crisis. Like which tribe is gonna be the militant group that's
Elite domination, elite politics.
Yeah, to some extent.
This is
right?
a leadership crisis.
Yeah, I guess so. And Baytullah Mahsud emerged out of that. So what he did was he put himself and his tribe as the dominant, anti-American, anti-Pakistan tribe. That's what he did. So essentially, he made it that my tribe is the anti-American, anti-Pakistan state tribe, and anyone that's on that agenda, they got to be under me and my tribe. That's what he's done, right? So in this area, you have Baytullah Mahsud. He's created that identity. Other people believe in that, right? There's other anti-US and anti-Pakistan militants, but they don't necessarily want to be under the Mahsudi. They don't want to be under control and being subjugated by the Mahsud. So you have this thing where Mahsud Baytullah is portraying himself as the leader and saying that all these other guys that are doing attacks, they're really under me. But in reality, each area and each tribe is, acting independently, and then he's sort of taking credit and portraying himself as a leader. And you had, in this period between 2004 and 2007, you had a lot of fighting between the guys that were supposedly on the same side. So all these anti-US, anti-Pakistan groups are fighting each other. Baytullah especially, he fought a lot of other militants, a lot of other Islamic militants for control. Like anyone that wasn't in line, that was close to his area, he would fight them. He killed Abdullah Mahsud, who was another rising guy that was trying to go around it. While Baytullah was emerging, there was another guy, Abdullah Mahsud, and he was trying to go away from the tribal identity and sort of create a or a unified Islamic front in that area. And Baytullah Mahsud allegedly had him killed or gave Pakistan his location so he could be taken out. So there's that rumor. Baytullah consolidating power and taking out people who he saw as rivals.
Just look up death of Jennifer CIA agent.
And then there was that guy in New York, right? The underwear bomber. He took credit for that as well.
Jennifer Matthews?
Yes, Jen Matthews. Her death. Whatever fort it was at.
Okay. Camp Chapman.
Camp Chapman.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so pull up the attack on Camp Chapman for us.
Yeah, I would pull it up on the Washington Post, but they
No, pull up the wiki.
We're going open source, yeah.
Oh, okay. It says the Camp Chapman attack was a suicide attack.
So it would say responsibility, and it might be a section in the table of contents on who claimed responsibility.
Al-qeada, Pakistani Taliban, and Afghan Taliban.
Does it say specific
Al-qeada.
The Pakistani Taliban claimed this attack.
Hakim Allah Masud.
Okay, so it was after
the
second guy. Who doesn't know, this is famously depicted in Zero Dark 30. This is Alex Station fucking up. They thought he was going to get them to Zawahiri, so they brought this guy in, and he was a triple agent working for Al-Qaeda and blew up this CIA base.
This could come to you through unexpected way, inshallah. We will get you CIA team. Inshallah, will you get you down? Look, this is for you. It's not watch. It's detonator. To kill as much as I can, inshallah. This is my dua. To kill you, to kill your partner, Jordanian partner. Don't think that you just press it and button, killing Mujahideen, you are safe.
Huge explosion. It was the only time somebody has like directly attacked the CIA targeted like that. But the TTP claimed responsibility for this. Guess what the United States does in response?
Nothing.
A double tap.
Ow. A double tap.
So they not only just killed a militant for it, when the people came to help him, they bombed him again. So they bombed the rescue workers. That's what Assad does. It's a serious war crime.
Oh my god.
But the CIA.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're not allowed to do that, right? You're not allowed to fucking attack medics and shit.
And it's not even medics. It's like the neighbors. Because aren't you gonna go help your neighbor if his house fucking explodes, dude?
Yeah.
Kids and shit, like all these people coming over to help, they bombed him again.
And that was the CIA that did that.
They killed a lot of fucking people. You'll probably be in that wiki article. Say the response
should be targeted more.
But this is why I wanted to bring it up, because this gets us into the ethics of drone strikes, because that's a clear demonstration of an amazingly unethical drone strike. That is a serious fucking war crime right there. And it's interesting because you'll talk to some of the people, mainly the people in the Khyber area, not the tribal area, that I'll hear that they're like kind of pro drone strike because they don't like the militants, you know?
Yeah. Especially the ANP guys, the communist guys, they're very pro drone strike. What's the name, man? Mohsen Dawar and what's the other fat guy, man?
But this is really after this attack on the fort. What year is that, Jack? The camp.
It was 2009.
Yeah, so
December
this is really
30th, 2009.
This is really when the drone war hits its height.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
And then the other use of drones was simply the fact that both U.S. and Pakistan were unable to penetrate the network these guys had. It was like fierce loyalty. So normally the standard procedure, right? Not standard procedure, but the normal thing to do is you go in there with the federal agents, you talk to the tribes, you get tribal rivals, and you sort of take them out that way. But that just wasn't working because the Mahsuds and the Waziris, they had this like intense like loyalty, or like betrayal was like the worst sin you could ever do. Like, so it just wasn't working. They couldn't bribe their way through. They couldn't get hits out. The assassination just wasn't working. That's why they resorted. Like drone strike was almost like a resort. Like, all right, screw it. We can't do anything else. We're just gonna bomb it and just kill everyone.
Terrorism goes up, you know.
I mean, yeah,
right around that time. So,
but the conflict in Pakistan escalated because the Pakistanis escalated on purpose, because they weren't able to, get control through the conventional avenues. So Pakistan viewed it as, okay, listen, we've dealt with, these backwards tribal peoples before. They had in 94 in Swat and Malakand, they had operations against TNSM, which is what evolved into TTP in the Swat side. They had operations back in the 90s.
Kind of like even if it's proven factually in history what happened, is this a kind of a who shot first situation politically? That's
sort of like the excuse way of looking at it. Pakistan will literally say, look, these savage tribal people, they don't have running water. They're all fanatic barbarians with guns. They came into
the Pakistan state will say they started it.
Yeah, of course Pakistan's going to say that.
And then the other side will say Pakistan started it.
Exactly. And the tribal people say, no, you came to our area and tried to do your operations when we were fighting jihad. So that's why we, are attacking you. But the thing that really like flared up and really brought the militancy to a peak was the Lal Masjid siege in Islamabad. That was one turning point. Then the thing that swayed it the other way was the Peshawar APS attack. The Lal Masjid was in 2007.
Well, APS is when Fazullah comes.
Fazlullah.
So I wanted to get into the fracture. So we are talking about drone strikes.
Mm-hmm.
Dude is killed by a drone strike. Leadership crisis.
Massoud is killed.
Yeah. Leadership crisis emerges.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody seemed to want Fazullah?
Okay, Fazlullah is not the leader of the TTP, right? He has absolutely no say or control over Waziristan, Khyber Agency. He has his little group in SWAT.
What do you think he was seen as the leader then?
Pakistan is
the
saying
thing is that it fractured. It
he's the
fractured,
leader.
right?
He-
Is there other groups that saw themselves as the actual descendants, as the leadership descendant to the other guy?
I mean, Hakim, yeah, that's where you have Nur Wali Mahsood, Umar Khurasani, all these other guys that are like, who the hell are you up in SWAT? This is a tribal matter in Fatah. Like, this is our thing. I think a lot of people were like, who the hell are you? Fazlullah in flipping SWAT. You're taking over Chitral and Malakan. Like, you're not even near the border. That's like, stay out of it. That's why you have the SWAT takeover. Everyone tries to group it together, but it's a completely different movement. It's got completely different objectives. SWAT it's a different reality to the rest of the tribal areas. SWAT is not Fatah, right? SWAT used to be Pata with a P, which is provincially administered, which is the government never had any law say at all. Only Peshawar could. So the government would have to negotiate with Peshawar. Peshawar would negotiate with SWAT. That's how it used to be back in the 60s or something. But it became incorporated. So
what crawled up Fazullah's ass to make him such a douchebag?
I mean, he was. I mean, I don't think he was too different from any other.
Deliberately, the amount of deliberate targets of children and
a lot of. Okay, here's the thing, right? In SWAT, you have.
Well, it's also the school attack too. I know they were military kids and all that, but dude, have you seen what that fucking place
the
looked
APS
like afterwards?
Fazlullah never. The Fazlullah was not involved in the APS attack, right?
He claimed to be.
Well,
it was Omar Khorasani, wasn't it? Right?
He wasn't. APS attack, practically, if you look at it, was Uzbeks, Al-qeada, Uzbeks allied with Al-qeada from Orakzai agency carried out the attack in Peshawar. No TTP cell, no TTP commander, no TTP militants were involved in that attack. In 2014,
it's the Peshawar school attack.
Yeah, so in Peshawar they have you have military schools everywhere, right? So I'm sure you have in Australia and stuff there, right? It's like a normal high school,
like an officer school, or a high school.
It's like a high school, right?
They're they're pre-military school.
Yeah,
it's like 16, 17.
Yeah, so you do army drills and you work out, and then once you graduate,
of them are kids of the commanders of the military.
It's high school age. But anyone can.
As far as the United States concerned, they would be identified as
military age males.
Yeah,
I mean they're not soldiers, all right? They're kids.
Yeah,
the literal.
But
kids,
if the United States bombed the school, they would be military age males.
Of course, yeah.
That's all I'm saying. It was fucked up attack, but I'm just saying.
Yeah,
as far as the United States is concerned, it's kind of hypocritical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, but victors can do whatever they want, right? If you're the biggest military on earth, you set the rules.
And also, I don't think anything the United States did is as fucked up as that school attack. Witnesses, kids who survived, they said that they were talking about make sure not to waste bullets, make them count.
That's the mentality of the people that did it. But the people that did it were Uzbeks, right? First of all, the Uzbeks are not native to that area, right? Uzbeks came from North Afghanistan. They were Al-qeada fighters. They came to
the Uzbek militant movement is basically Al-qeada.
Yeah, no, they are Al-qeada.
They sometimes are considered a separate thing. It's like the Khani network are sometimes considered a separate thing than the Taliban, but they're fucking Taliban.
Okay, right. Yeah. So these Uzbeks are Al-qeada. After when the U.S. invaded, they moved over into Orakzai agency, right? So they were present in Waziristan and Orakzai agency. So what happened is some of the local elders, tribal leaders, whatever, they gave Nanawate, it's like a protection, or like you're allowed to stay in our area. They gave that to these Uzbek fighters. That's the background. Then what happens is that you have these military operations going on. Pakistan is doing the operations. These Uzbeks, they went in there, they massacred these kids, right? In response, Pakistan invades Waziristan. It invades North Waziristan, which is not where the Uzbeks came from. The Uzbeks were in Orakzai agency. So that shows, if you're more conspiratorially minded, that if Pakistan wanted to address the issue, they would have gone into Orakzai agency, to the heart of the issue, and wiped out the Al-qeada Uzbeks where they were at their source. But they didn't. They went into North Waziristan and attacked the Waziri and Mahsud militants. The thing to take away is that the tribal militants were not like calling for this attack, and I think a lot of them, when that happened, were like, "Oh crap, this is gonna backlash to us who did this," right? The Afghan Taliban on their side, which they've always had issues with the TTP, because it's like the TTP really is messing up the ability to negotiate with the US, and the TTP is propping up the Haqqani family in Paktia, and it's giving them influence within the Taliban circle. So you have all these different frictions between the Afghan Taliban and the Pakistani Taliban. The APS attack is just another one of those. But the takeaway that I would say is that the APS attack was the turning point after which the population, like the actual people, start to call for the Pakistani military to remove these militants.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting you brought that up. The APS attack is what really swayed public opinion against the militants. What gave them the initial support was the 2007 Lal Masjid siege in Islamabad. That's what really, that's where local people were like, what the hell is going on? How dare Pakistan do this? What happened was there's a masjid, right? Like a mosque in Islamabad. It was like the leader, the head imam, the head teacher that was teaching the kids, he's a Pashtun, right? So a lot of people from tribal areas had family that were living in Islamabad that went to that school, right? I went to that masjid, sorry. So these people, the mosque, what they went around, they tried to establish Sharia patrol, right? So they were literally going around with sticks, and people that were playing music, they would hit them. They were smashing alcohol bottles and all that. But
yeah, this sounds exactly like the United States prohibition movement. If you actually look at it,
right?
They literally did this. They went into bars and beat the shit out of bartenders.
But, I mean, they're doing all this stuff. They're like TV. You can't watch TV. They were destroying video cassettes and stuff. But a lot of them were kids, right? Because these are seminary age. So these are not 6 or 7, but they're 13, 14. The older ones are 18. The younger ones are 8, 9. It's that sort of age group, right? So they're kids, and you have you have the as they're going around, they also have guns as well, right? So what happens is specific details, and this is a major operation, but essentially the Pakistan army lays siege onto that mosque, the mosque, right? And inside the mosque, there's kids, there's women, there's people that were kids that are just there to go to their after school madrasa, right? You have militants in there as well. So Pakistan lays siege to the mosque, and what Musharraf gives the order to go in there and take everyone out, and the Pakistan forces go in there and kill a bunch of kids, kill a bunch of. I mean, the claim is that they're all militants, right?
Alpha team style. Let's go Russia.
Yeah, but Pakistan says, oh, they're kids, but they're still militants, right? They had guns, and then a lot of the parents and the family are like, no, we saw the bodies, these kids were some of them 9, 10. So the unofficial death count is 70. The official death count is 10. So this is huge disparity, right? First of all, Pakistan is not even acknowledging a lot of the deaths. In response to this attack, the tribal militants, and tribal people really start to organize and be like, no, this is we're not accepting this. This is, they cross the line. First of all, you've attacked a mosque. So you're a Muslim, supposedly a Muslim country. This is supposed to be a almost like a area where like whatever fighting goes on side, it's not supposed to happen inside the mosque. You're killing kids. These are our kids, because a lot of these families come from, you know, the tribal areas or the Pashto areas, and so that really inflared a lot of the people in that area, and really got the militant groups were able to use that as propaganda and recruit because of that attack.
Okay, so Pakistan is starting to buckle down. Did they not ban the TTP?
I mean, yeah, from the inception almost, right? But
Okay,
like what there, that's in, you know, Pakistan doesn't have any authority in that area in the
sure.
first place.
So
Practically.
it was more or less a hollow gesture more than anything, as like a safe face for the Pakistani government. More so.
I mean, like, dude, like RPGs and AK-47s are banned, right?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
everyone has one, right? It's not a thing. Like, you can go to a gun shop and the guy will be like, "Where's your license?" "Oh, I don't have one." "Okay, all right, pay a little extra money." It's not like a thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so this attack was in 2007. So
Okay.
the this attack in 2007 gives the militants a lot of support. The violence escalates, the fighting escalates. In 2014, you have the APS attack.
Yeah.
That sways the public opinion the other way, and that's where people start.
That was sort of the beginning of the end of
that is the
sort of
beginning of that.
peak.
So you have Lal
Yeah.
Masjid is their peak, APS is their end. From 2014
okay.
onwards, you have, you know, Zarbi Azad, Azab, and all these major operations that had huge public support and had also a lot of local support as well.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
We talked about the APS attack, but also the conflict during this period is famous for how many schools they destroyed.
Mhm.
So we can't really say that all those were Al-Qaeda, you know? So there's
the way it's almost as if the once the violence starts, it just goes everywhere. The violence is just spreading, and the reasons and the you know, the justification for it starting to disappear. It's literally like, this is a target, no, this is a target, and with the sides become blurred. You have TTP guys that are allying with the Pakistan military. You have TTP guys that are separatists. You have TTP guys that are, you know, localized. You have the tribal areas have their TTP. In SWAT, you have a different TTP. It's TTP becomes more of a catch-all term to describe like militant
it's a
people.
movement.
It's militant people almost.
It's also like it's using liberal to describe the entire left wing.
Exactly.
You know?
It's like, or it's like saying liberal. All right, what does that mean? Like, are you a communist? Are you like a?
And for some people, they think liberals are communists.
Exactly,
which
right.
is like.
So, I think one thing you can
So
say.
what was the whole hatred of schools and?
No, I think that's just a target, dude. Like, when you have not much development, when you don't have many buildings.
I mean,
right?
you're saying, like, what else? What didn't they destroy?
They destroyed everything, right? They took out hospitals, they took out schools, they took out mosques. On YouTube, you gotta type it in Pashto, but you have like the old like local guys with their videos going around filming the destruction and the attacks. In SWAT, that's all on YouTube. You can look it up.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of. I have a little playlist.
No, like literally, like you have like the guys that like interview like the TTP. Like you have this guy, he like interviews.
I've
Muslim
seen him.
Khan
I just don't understand what they're saying.
He's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Nah, dakhul zamung jihad." And it's like, bro, like you're blowing us up. Like we're literally cousins. Like this don't match up. So you have that.
What I'm talking about is more like the government had like charter schools.
No, Pakistan tried to start that, and people are blowing it up.
That's
that's
like
that's like
that's
no,
the school.
you're
That's
not
some of the
coming in
schools
our
they were
area and building
targeting.
it. Yeah, that's what they were doing.
Okay.
So Pakistan, anything infrastructure that Pakistan was building, they would blow up. Yeah, it's like a complete rejection that no, you have no say in our area. You're not going to build anything. You're not going to do anything. Or you know, you have this. They're like, hey, listen, if you don't pay us, we're going to blow that up. You have that as well. So that is, but like I said, it's not deliberate targeting of schools. I think it's just a wide part of a greater attempt to dismantle or destroy all the infrastructure that Pakistan is trying to build.
It's Noor Walid Mahsood. This new guy right here.
Noor Wali Mahsood, the fat dude.
Yeah, he just came in. and he kind
Or
of
he's been
has,
around for a while, but he's
well,
propping
yeah, but
himself
he
up
brought
now.
in these two split factions and joined them into one to get
Okay,
some.
he got the Mexud guys that were doing their own thing, right? And he was like, "No, I am your leader." That's what he did. All right, this I wouldn't progress it beyond that, because TTP does not exist outside of specific areas in Waziristan
Mhm.
right now. They don't have anything in that
Mostly
area.
North Waziristan too.
Yeah, especially right. Yeah, not even southern Waziristan. In that Wadwana area
They
where they originally were.
basically just went on an all-out death campaign and pushed them all into North Waziristan
Yeah,
and built a
and
fence around it.
it was literally, if we wipe out the population, there's no more fighters left.
Yeah. Well,
Displaced a million
the
people, killed
civilians did
80,000.
run away at that point,
You had a million
largely.
internal refugees.
Yeah.
This is
So,
crazy. People ran
but there were
over the
human
border into
shields as well. Like
Afghanistan.
schools, that was another thing. Is like students made good human shields,
Or how many of
and
the
both
students
sides
are?
did that
Yeah,
because
but
both sides do that.
I was gonna say that it was the campaign was so brutal and so bad that people ran away into Afghanistan. Like that's when you know, like these people ran away from Waziristan into Paktia, into like southern Afghanistan, which at that time was like where the Taliban were resurging.
Well, he kind of came in at this time. Ceasefires are in place. Negotiations were going
Mhm.
well. They kind of put it on. Well, like, oh, if IK is gone, is this going to shake up the ceasefire with the Taliban? But it seems
Oh,
basically to a close. And this guy is like not really. He was escalating in 2021. But
Fazlullah? He's
the
dead,
new
dude.
guy.
Oh,
In
Nur Wali-
2021, there was an escalation of
Oh,
attacks.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so I actually
24
spoke about
incidents
this.
in North
Yeah,
Waziristan.
I spoke about this. They had no, it was way more than that. They had TTP claimed 600 kills in 2021. In 20 since August 15th. When did the Afghan Taliban take it? Was August 15th, right? Between August 15th and I think it was April 2022, they claimed like 200 attacks. That was like 150 soldiers killed, however many hundred wounded. That was their claim. So a lot of people are saying that this escalation is a result of the Afghan Taliban taking over, and that there's going to be a resurgence in violence, and the TTP is going to reemerge, and they're going to be allied with the Afghan Taliban properly this time, and it's going to push the conflict over, and the Afghan Taliban are going to take territory in Pakistan. All this stuff,
and
right?
we have seen videos where they
But
take a security checkpoint, and
yeah, but the
you know,
on the ground there's been no change. I don't think the
I think you
the
can
evolution.
expect instability with the United States pulling out of the country next door to you.
I mean, ironically, the country's stable now that the U.S. has pulled out. So,
But do you think integrating FATA was a huge part of that?
it certainly.
And by integrating, are we talking about
Yeah.
massacring everyone in there and then
I mean,
integrating?
you kill off all the radical tribal people, and whoever's left, you can negotiate with and sort of, bring them into the, to abandon their previous
Okay.
ways.
So what we're learning is violence works.
Work for Pakistan. I mean, they're never going to be able to. I don't think they're never going to be able to quell the local tribal authority and replace that and make FATA like the rest of
Especially
KPK.
now they aren't.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to do that. But
I see. I was thinking you were saying the other thing. Never mind.
but their Pakistan has been effective in removing the militancy against its own army. It's been very effective in doing that. And because it's been effective in doing that, it is now able to more effectively carry out its foreign policy with Afghanistan and negotiate, on that front. So what you're looking at, in a way, is a evolution in Pakistani foreign policy where they moved away from a more Islamist idea and being part of the Islamic world. And I think over the next
Don't
5
blame
years,
them.
in the next 5 years, you're going to see them shift more towards, ironically, India and China, and I think you're going to see the attempt by Pakistan to have sort of like Afghanistan be the end of the Islamic area, and Pakistan be the beginning of sort of a unified
Like a new tribal
subcon-
area.
a subcontinent identified area. So Pakistan, India, and China be sort of a working together and being sort of a unified, not unified, but a
Strategic
cooperative,
partner.
strategic partner, economic partners.
Yeah.
I think Pakistan is very much looking
Well,
for
so-
that.
I'm not sure India will like that.
Yeah, India is definitely on board with that. I mean,
the thing is that there is a lot of racists in India, but it's not the government. The government is going to do what the government does.
I mean,
like
the thing is that in Sindh, Punjab, they are Indians, right?
yeah,
Like,
they literally are Indians.
So, and that is the majority of Pakistan's population. So, although there's going to be pushback and there's going to be, probably an upsurge in domestic violence, overall, I think the population will definitely be able to accept a more common or a more friendly view with India as opposed to the previous view, which is, those are Hindus, we are Muslims. And
well, what's interesting is
that we're
before this
violent.
war on terror, one of the reasons why there's many reasons, just one of the reasons why the tribal areas were so declined in poverty and education and all that stuff, and the government not caring about them, is because they were more focused on the other border with India.
Yeah, it's the fact that at that, like, if you're going back to the 60s and 70s, like, so that's the back in the 60s and 70s with the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, the rise of the Taliban, and then you have the spillover into Pakistan, the rise of militancy in Pakistan, that really gained steam in 2007, peaks in 2008 to 2009. 2014, you have the APS attack, and the steam starts to blow the other way. Pakistan really gains the upper hand. The population and even the local tribal people turn against the militants. And by 2016, 2017, the violence is curbed. By 2018, FATA is ready to be integrated. And now you have the situation today, which is, everything's integrated, everything's unified. It's sort of
Jinnah did it.
It's sort of duct taped together, but it's holding for now.
Yeah.
Interesting fact, right? If you're like, if you speak Pashto or whatever, right? You're always thinking, how come all these guys have like these really cool sounding names? So like you have Hakimullah, Baitullah, like Zabiullah. You have all these like, you have like Omar Khurasani, Noor, Wali. It's like all these really cool names, right? Like how did they come up with that? These are all titles, by the way, right? This is why I learned, like, I don't want to admit how late in my life I learned this. So like Hakimullah's real name is Jamshed, okay, which is like the most like generic student.
Yeah,
like,
Jamshid, the RPG god.
Exactly. His name is Jamshed.
You know what I'm talking about.
One RPG Taliban, poof.
Damn. You couldn't get a more perfect RPG shot than he had.
Here we go, Jim shot. Yeah, looking badass. Halyut cinema. Finish. One RPG, Taliban. Yeah. Finish Taliban.
Jamshid, RPG god.
He's nuts, man. The guy, he clears the mind. He's like, yeah, it's pretty crazy. No, bro, like Jamshed is like a dorky name. Like,
Yeah.
if someone's called Jamshed, it's like, bro, really? Like your parents like want you to go to school. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, it's very interesting. I just wanted to say that, like, because you mentioned like the other guy's name was an alias. So yeah, a lot of these commanders, they have aliases.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one's actually called like Saifi Muhammad.
They have hacker names.
Everyone's called like Parvez or something. So
Fucking Morpheus over here.
It's very
Hey,
interesting.
man.